Mbanje enomina odondera enoviru odombanje enomina odondera enoviru odombanje enomina odondera enoviru odombanje enomina.
As you may be aware, this is the month of October. October, as you are well aware, is the month when the extermination order against the Ovaherero was issued. That's why Otjetu Oveni deemed it necessary to host this event to reflect on the history of genocide. I've got with me on my left Mr. Chombumbi, and then on my right Mr. Kawesa, and then on my extreme right Mrs. Naomi Chitunga. The three of them will reflect on various aspects of the genocide. Give me this opportunity now to introduce Mr. Kawesa, who will do the welcoming remarks, as well as, give us a brief, history of the Otjetu. Mr. Kawesa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kai Matubarulo. My name is Elvis Kawesa. I am the Executive Secretary of the Otjisuta Association. We have this genocide symposium on this day, 22nd of October 2020 at the Unam Commercial Hall. And I am now appealing to all the audiences and viewers and followers of the genocide and reparation issue of the Namas and the Herero, the Namas and the Ovaherero and the Namas, committed by Germany over the period 1904-1908. And as such, I'm also going to give a brief outline and the objectives of the Otjisuta Oveni Association. It's a foundation that was created for the descendants of the victims of the genocide by Germany on the two tribal groups, Ovaherero and the Namas. The objectives and mandate of the association are to promote unity of purpose amongst the victims, groups and communities, to uplift the socio-economic and cultural status of the victims, to meaningfully engage, participate in the genocide and the reparation dialogue. Also to promote, to monitor and evaluate the progress in attainment of the reparation resources and its potential policies. Reparation have got 5 pillars on which it stands, and that is, one is restitution, rehabilitation, compensation, satisfaction, and guaranteed non-repetition of such an act. The rationale for advancing this submission is the importance of charting the legal standing of the right to reparation for the Ovaherero and Nama communities as victims of serious violations of human rights and humanitarian law by the Germans in 1904, 1908, Herero and Nama Genocide in Namibia. It is also to explore the challenges associated with the implementation of this right in 1904, 1908, Herero and Nama Genocide in Namibia, including the role to be played by the United Nations in this regard under the instruments mentioned below in the German and the Herero Nama Genocide. The right to reparation in international law for victims of armed conflict states or is provided in the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, adopted on 9 December 1948. There is also the Convention for Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms, adopted on 4th November 1950. The International Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, adopted on 21 December 1965. The international humanitarian law also covers some sections on genocide, the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilian persons in terms of war. And then coupled with that is also the international criminal law, the Rome State of International Criminal Court, adopted 17 July 1998 by the United Nations Diplomatic Conference and the establishment of an international criminal court. General international law, that is the Vienna Convention of the Law of Treaties, adopted 23 May 1969. I think in short that is the basis on which Otjisuta Oveni is an association is involving itself in the management of the genocide of the Ovaherero and the Nama by Germany over the period 1904-1908. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kaweza. I want to highlight one important thing that Mr. Kaweza mentioned, for which this event has been organized. That is to try and engender unity among the various descendants. As you will be aware, there are many organizations striving, for one objective, that is the reparation. It is not a bad thing. Many people have been trying to say, when we are many and different organizations, Germany would not listen to us. I don't buy that. For one, I believe that all of us, irrespective of what organization you are, the most important thing is that you strive towards the reparation of of our communities. Therefore, it is important that we, from our various, vantage positions, we contribute towards the main objective. So it's better, rather than just one person, standing up against Germany. It is good that all of us, from our various vantage positions, to take up this matter. So, having said that, I think I will move on to the next speaker. I think it's better that we go to Mr. Shombumbi, because it is very important that we know where we stand, because the last thing on the table was a joint declaration. It was debated in Parliament. We don't know after Parliament what happened. So it is very important that perhaps we go to to that aspect of the joint declaration, and Mr. Chumbumbi can tell us, what is the status quo of the joint declaration, where do we stand with it, and before we go to Mr. Shutunga, who would now take us through the various, legal procedures that we could apply in terms of, advancing the cause. Mr. Chumbumbi, the floor is yours.
Indeed, thank you very much. As you said, my name is Ovaherero, and I'm representing Herero Royal Traditional Authority. I want to be more specific in terms of that, so that it's known where I'm coming from and from which angle I'm speaking from. In terms of the joint declaration, before I move into my presentation, it is still between the two governments, the Namibian government and the German government. The negotiation is still going on. We just hope that it will be concluded in favor of the descendants of the victims of genocide. Having said that, my presentation will be the post-joint declaration between the two governments, and I will go through the following: the debriefing meeting by the VP, who is the Vice President of the Republic of Namibia, in May 2021, meetings with various stakeholders, continuous consultation with the Vice President, the meeting, August 2022, position of the Chief Assembly of The for the genocide, and then I will have recommendations in conclusion. In respect of the debriefing, in May 2021, the Vice President of the Republic of Namibia have briefed various chiefs through the chief forums in terms of what transpired during the negotiation and what was the outcome. And the outcome of this specific meeting was that there was a initialized joint declaration that was initialized by both governments, by both envoys, our late Dr. Gabriel in Poland. And however, during the debriefing, Chief Herero and Chief Derewa declined the joint declaration in its present form, and this is also because the position paper, the 2019 position paper of the ONCP, which is the body that was established by the chief, by various chiefs, to come together and to forge networking among us, the chiefs that was working with government by then, was not used. So, as such, the joint declaration did not offer solutions to the descendants or to the victims of the descendants of genocide. And I will refer to specific issues in the joint declaration. The joint declaration did not refer to the acts of Germans as genocide. However, they may have referred this to this position, but it did not recognize the acts of Germans as genocide. The joint declaration also left out the diaspora's issues. We know that we have people that are in Botswana, that are in South Africa, that are in Angola, that went there because of genocide. And as such, the declaration left out the issues of the participation and the benefit of reparations of the diasporans. The projects that was proposed was not conclusive. The amount that was offered was not acceptable. There was a certain clause of clause 20 that referred to the payment as a final payment. and other issues that was also part of the, including the establishment of the commission that is to deal with the implementation of projects. All those type of things were it's not acceptable. Anyway, they were not acceptable by both Chief Herero and Chief Derewa, together with other stakeholders that they were together. As a result, the chiefs informed government that they were going to consult their people and also provide feedback to government. The position paper that was not used by the negotiating team, representing the technical committee, the chief technical committee that have adopted the position paper, have alluded to specific amount after careful calculations, after benchmarking, after making informed decisions and research as to that, at least if we are if reparations is to be paid, an amount of 17 trillion will be sufficient. And it goes to the issues of the loss of life, displacement of people, land disposition, livestock disposition, and also atrocities committed. We may know that the lives of people is we cannot value the life of people, but there are benchmarking that have been taking place around the world, and as such, we make calculations accordingly. After the briefing, as I said, that Chief Herero and Chief Derewa informed government that they are going to consult their people, for their people also to give them proper information in terms of input. They went further and also consulted other stakeholders. First and foremost, they consulted late Dr. Gaviwe, our genocide inmate, or who was the genocide inmate back then. They went and consulted also Professor Kashawibi, the Speaker of the National Assembly. We consulted MPs who specifically those MPs that consulted various communities in terms of the joint declaration. And then we also went further and consulted various political parties, specifically those that are in the National Assembly, including NUTO, SWANU, SWAPO, PTM, LPM. All those organizations were consulted, and we provided them with what we think were the position of the chiefs in terms of the joint declaration. And we ensured that during our consultation, we presented our position paper so that when they were to go into Parliament and to discuss the joint declaration, they also take note of the views of the specific chiefs who were all along working with, moving along with government, but who differ in terms of the outcome of the joint declaration. We, after this specific consultation with various institutions that I just mentioned, we also briefed the VP, which is the Vice President of the Republic of Namibia, in various meetings. I may think that we may have had 3 to 4 meetings with the VP, if not 2, but I think it should be 3 to 4 meetings that we had with the VP in terms of briefing him in his manpower, and people that were together with Chief Herero, the following were also involved, and that is Chief Sinani Herero, Chief Manasseh Christian Mengu Derewa, Chief Bura Bureti, Mr. Benesus Kanungu, Mr. Mbeli Kaunya, both of them are representatives of Kambadengi Royal Traditional Authorities, and Commissioner Salman Jacobs of the Nama Genocide 1904-1908 Development Trust. I just wanted to highlight that so that you also may know that it was not only the two chiefs, but they had also other stakeholders on board. However, those that I just mentioned also decided to go and consult other chiefs, especially the chiefs that were not party or not part of the government negotiating team, and hence Chief Herero and Chief Berewa consulted other chiefs to forge and establish relationship with them on genocide issues. These consultations resulted in a joint meeting of the 8 chiefs at Ovaherero on 2021 August 2022 this year. The Ovaherero meeting gave birth to a memorandum of understanding signed by the 8 chiefs of the Ovaherero and Nama, and it was signed on 21 August 2021. The memorandum of understanding highlights, but just a few issues that I want to highlight. And that is to say that the National Assembly motion or resolution of 2006 on genocide, apology and reparation be the basis for negotiations. Furthermore, we seek to ensure that a tripartite and a direct negotiation on equal footing among the three parties, which is the Namibian government, the German government, and the descendants of the victims of genocide, be on negotiating table. That the proposed, the MOU also proposed that 28 May be a genocide day to be proclaimed by government. We continue to we will continue to engage government on various issues on genocide, especially on its obligations, because government has its own implication that I will also highlight a bit later on. And that is also the MOU was earmarked to enhance and deepen cooperation among the Ovaherero or Bandero with the Nama communities as descendants of victims of genocide. It is important that we cooperate and deepen our relationships with the Nama community, because genocide was declared to both Ovaherero, Bandero, and Nama communities. And furthermore, the Ovaherero highlighted that we need also to enhance and deepen cooperation among the NGOs that work on genocide issues, and hence we are represented here, especially through the Herero Royal House, to say that we continue to work with NGOs that so that at the end of the day, we all of us fight for one goal of ensuring that that genocide is recognized, apology is tendered, and reparation is supported. We will also, the MOU also furthermore will seek international solidarity. You may be aware that some institutions already are aware of the issues of genocide. Hence, various African governments and African nations start to want to get reparations from their former colonizers. One of the institutions can be the African Union. Other institutions can be tribunals also within Africa and within SADC. We also have, of course, SADC parliamentary forum that can be used as part of the international solidarity that we need to seek. We may also know that we have various, especially the Ambassador Arikana, that have been speaking about the issues of reparation. We also need to seek redress from our local and international courts and tribunals, and especially when we exhausted our internal process. It's important that before you go outside our country, we need to exhaust internal processes and ensure that we afford an opportunity to our government in its organs, so that by the end of the day, when we move outside the country, then we know that we have exhausted our internal process. The position of the Chief Assembly will be made known. It is now currently under construction, and it will be made known as soon as the Chief Assembly meeting has taken place next week, Monday, 24th of October 2022. And then this position paper will be used as a position paper that they are going to use in terms of negotiation with the government, in terms of stating it clear what is it that they want to, that the chief intend to do, in terms of the processes and also the joint declaration. My humble and recommendations are lined as follows: that we need to have a national genocide conference, whereby we need to come up with a common position paper of Namibia. The descendants of the victims of genocide must fully represented on the negotiation table and speak for themselves. The Namibian government must support the negotiating processes and honor its obligation of inheriting the state and independence, including assets and liabilities. And that the negotiating process and the JT need to be revised, and that we need to have an act of parliament on genocide. Furthermore, the Ovaherero and Nama communities, we need to stand together and be strong in our fight for a total liberation from the German government. It is important that when we talk about genocide issues, it's not just a matter of reparations. It's about liberation. It's not about reparation, but it's about for me, it's more about liberation. The German origins in Namibia must support the quest for reparations by the Ovaherero and Nama descendants of victims of genocide of 1904-1908. It is important that the German origins support, because if they don't, the consequences of this might not be in favor of what they may want to see. In conclusion, genocide negotiations should not be taken for granted. Otherwise, the descendants of the victims, and especially should not be taken granted by the descendants of the victims of genocide. It is to ensure that we do not do disservice to ourselves, and we do not also become dishonesty to the nation and to the future generations. Chief Samuel Kashikumba Maharero said, "Let us die fighting." I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chobumbi. There are a few things that is coming out of Mr. Chobumbi's presentation. The most important one, or very clear one, is that after negotiations of about 5 years, the two governments, the Namibian government and the German government, came up with a joint declaration. However, this joint declaration was not acceptable, to all the descendants. Particularly, he mentioned Chiefs Manasseh Zeraiwa and Chiefs Chinani Maharero, who had reservations about this joint declaration. That means that we have not come to the end of this campaign for reparation and or liberation, as Mr. Chobumbi pointed out, and that there is a need for the descendants to continue to engage the Namibian government. He mentioned particularly that there are various options like the AU, the SATEC forum, but also highlighting the need to start locally and to explore internal processes. And on that note, that is the very thing, that is the subject now that Mrs. Chitunga would expound on as to what are the various options internally that we could look at. Because Mr. Chimbumbi also mentioned the possibility of an act of parliament on genocide. On that note, I will now hand it over to Ms. Chitunga to navigate us through the various options that we might have in terms of the internal processes that we can follow in order to enhance the campaign for reparations. Ms. Chitunga, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shea. Let me start by introducing myself. I know that most of the Namibians know me. Maybe they've heard about my name or they have seen me. My name is Naomi Chitunga. I'm a specialist in the field of public policy and good governance. So I'm here in my capacity as one of the leaders of the organization that has organized this event, which is referred to as Otjetu Oveni. All right, so now, yes, I'm not really going to be long because most of the things that I was supposed to have touched have already been said by the previous speakers. Mr. Kawesa has already touched on the objectives of Otjetu Oveni, indicating the purpose of why the institution was established. Mr. Shambumbi has very well articulated on the joint declaration, which is currently the bone of contention in the public arena. So, as a public policy specialist, I would only touch on a small item, which is the importance of trying to legalize or institutionalize the motion 2006, which has not really been institutionalized as such or properly. And I would first look at how institutionalization of motions is done in Parliament, looking at how many other acts of Parliament have been enacted for the reason of addressing problems within a society. Right. My topic reads as follows: the Namibian parliamentary activities in relation to the 2006 motion on genocide. That is the title of my talk. So therefore, I'll be looking at what has the Namibian government done with regard to this motion, or what are they supposed to have done in order for it to become a law. The first thing that I will have to indicate to people is who is called the Namibian Parliament. If I'm to talk about the Namibian Parliament, who is this Parliament? There are people who do not know what are the functions of the Parliament and why it came into being and how it did. Okay? So therefore, I would have to indicate to you people that Parliament is the supreme legislative body of Namibia, or it is a supreme legislative body of any given democratic society or democratic government. Therefore, it is a supreme lawmaking legislative body, in a sense that it got its mandate from the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the government. So if we look in chapter 7 of the Constitution, Article 44, it is indicated that the Namibian Constitution gives Parliament a mandate to make laws. So the laws of the country are made in Parliament. And they have the right to do that. They've given the right by the supreme law, which is the Constitution. Let me mention an example of some laws that have been made in Parliament. There are quite many since independence, but I'm just going to mention, but not just a few. Okay, the Bank of Namibia Act of 2022, Act 1 of 2022, Banking Institutions Act of 1998, Bills of Exchange, Biosafety Act, and so forth. A lot of acts are being made in Parliament. They are being enacted in Parliament. Okay? Okay, now the question comes from a layman on the street as to why are laws needed? Why do we need a law? Okay, why are laws needed? If I may ask, everybody will have his own answer if they do not exactly know why the laws are made. Okay, laws are made to protect the people or the citizens of a society, either individually or collectively. So the law is laid to protect the individuals in the society, collectively or individually. Okay? Laws protect the general safety and ensure our rights as citizens against abuse by other people, by organizations, and by the government itself. Because at times, government can also abuse our rights. So laws are there to protect us against abuse. Okay, so now I'm getting to the point of who has the right to propose a law that has to be made. The cabinet, line ministries, government departments, members of parliament, non-governmental organizations like Otjisuta. As we are sitting here, we deserve the right to propose that government has to come up with a law. And private citizens, an individual person deserves the right to submit a proposal for a law to be enacted. Okay, now what happened in the absence of a law? What happens? What happens is the absence of the law leads to anarchy. It leads to anarchy. What is the meaning of anarchy? Anarchy is a state of disorder due to the absence of a controlling system. So if there is no controlling system, things happen left, right, and center without really being framed or being properly controlled. Therefore, it is very important that whenever a problem is tabled in Parliament, it needs to be properly discussed and then given the status that it deserves. Okay, let me look at the law-making process. Proposals of lawmaking are the policies of the government of the day. Government of the day has to make laws on every day. Okay, on any issue that is really being presented in government as has been a problem and discussed as such. Okay, government may propose legislation to deal with a particular event in a society which indicates a need for legal regulation and act as a statutory duty to maintain the law under review and recommend reform observations. Before a law is passed, it must first follow the procedures or stages of law-making process in Parliament. Very, very important. Laws are written, discussed, argued, and voted on in legislation of a state. The court then apply and interpret these statutes on a case-by-case basis. So, now let me look at the motion 2006 that was passed, that was presented in Parliament. We refer to this motion as the motion 2006 due to the fact that it was tabled that year in Parliament. Okay? So it was tabled by the late Nutu President, Honorable Dr. Kwaimari Wafo. Parliament discussed, accepted, and adopted the motion. It was given proper attention. It was discussed, it was accepted, it was adopted. But what happened after? After the adoption of the motion, government appointed a special envoy and a technical committee to assist him in the negotiation. I'll come to that. What do we call such a process? What do we call such a process? Such a process is called an ad hoc approach to a problem or to a motion. That was very much ad hoc in the sense that they have appointed committees. A committee can be dissolved at any time, so a committee does not really have any legal status. It can be dissolved at any time. Therefore, the approach was very much ad hoc. Okay, why do we say that? There was a lack of legislative backing. Just as we have already mentioned earlier on, no act of parliament or no law was made in order for the implementation of this motion to be a success. Okay, this motion 2006 remains a motion up to now. How many years now? More than 10 years down the line, we still have a motion. So Parliament did not do anything to it. It remains a motion until when? So we need to know that. Therefore, there is a need for a proper institutionalization of the motion 2006. Institutionalization. I don't want to go deeper in explaining what it means to institutionalize a motion. We must just make a law first. After we have had the law, that's when we can have the institutional capacity that will handle that particular law. Okay. What I'm trying to say from my own observation and own opinion as an analyst, I would say Namibia cannot and will not move forward towards a better democracy unless considerable and deliberate efforts are made towards social justice in all spheres of life, including the fight for restorative justice of the people that have suffered at the hands of the Germans. There is a need to restore the dignity of these people. There is a big need for that. To quote what the former president of the US has said some time ago, Barack Obama, governments that respect the will of their own people are more prosperous, more stable, and more successful than governments that do not. Okay, let me repeat that again. Barack Obama said, governments that respect the will of their own people are more prosperous, more stable, and more successful than governments that do not. I'll also support that with a quote that was sometimes also made by Prof. Tisho when he said, we need a strong parliament, an honest police force, independent judges and journalists, a vibrant private sector, and civil society. Those are the things that give life to democracy, because that is what the people vote for. Finally, we as Otjisuta, Oveni, argue for a sustainable constitutional democracy in Namibia. Thank you.
Mrs. Chitunga, thank you very much for that instructive presentation. I've noted two things. That there was a motion in Parliament But that motion till this day remains just a motion, which means, no practical meaning has been given to this motion. And that can only be given when that motion, as Mrs. Chitunga put it, is institutionalized. Probably working, towards an act of parliament that Mr. Chitunga earlier on referred to. That means there has been a motion on genocide in the Namibian Parliament, which led to the joint declaration, but a declaration which has not been accepted by the Namibian people or the descendants, and which means, that as far as the issue of genocide, reparation, and apology is concerned, it remains work in progress, or perhaps not even work in progress, but work in stagnation. Hence the need for the institutionalization of the motion, as Ms. Chitunga pointed out. Having my three presentations, having concluded their function, perhaps I should now open, the floor, perhaps to the House for any comments, any inputs, questions, and then we can engage in a discussion for a few minutes before we conclude this session. I shall now open, the floor to any comments from the floor, questions, clarification, or any particular question to the three presenters. The floor is open now.
Mr. Chairman, please add something. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think while the audience are preparing on their questions to the presentations, I only need to point out that the issue that caused commotion and discontent within the bilateral agreement between the German and the Namibian government was the issue of the money for reparation. The traditional chiefs stated that they have originally, after quantifying the losses caused over the 100 years of genocide, and also looking at the loss of land, looking at the loss of livestock, as well as the extent and stance at which the Ovaherero and the Nama tribal groupings are at the moment in Namibia, including the minority in terms of politics, political minority, being one of those groups. They have quantified the amount for reparation to be paid by Germany as the amount of 17 trillion Namibian dollars, which is equal to 1.3 trillion euros, of which the two governments or the negotiations, the negotiating teams have reduced that amount up to the reported 1.1 billion Namibian dollars, which is an equal amount allocated on an annual basis to the Ministry of Education for operations and running of the education ministry in Namibia. So I think that that was the most issue that caused the commotion and the discontent in allowing the bilateral agreement to be signed between the two governments on behalf of the Ovaherero and the Nama genocide. And if you take the amount of 1.3 trillion euros, we understand it's also an amount equal to an amount that Poland is demanding from Germany for genocide committed by Germany on Poland, of which Germany is also claiming that they have already paid a similar amount, an equal amount to that, to Poland, and they are not prepared to pay for the second time, which means that the calculations of the traditional chiefs in terms of quantifying the losses goes to the descendants of the victims of this genocide was correct. I only wanted to highlight that one, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Are there any comments from the floor? Any questions? Any inputs, contributions? If there are none, before I hand over the microphone to Mr. Awesa to do the conclusion, I just want to highlight two things that was said. One of the presenters, pointed out that the descendants of genocide cannot take this matter for granted. And then there was also something that was very instructive that Mrs. Chitunga pointed out, that the will of the people. So when we're talking about the issue of genocide, we're talking about the will of the descendants who have been cautioned not to take this matter for granted. So it means this issue does not belong to any individual, but it belongs to all the descendants. And every descendant, it is incumbent upon you or her to show interest in this matter, not only to show interest, but to stand up. You don't need to join any organization. From where you are, you need to speak up about this issue, especially given that, as it has been pointed out, that this motion is basically, stagnant, as has been shown that there was a joint declaration, but this joint declaration is currently in limbo. We don't know where it is. I am made to understand that the Vice President would next week, be calling all the descendants together. We don't know what kind of feedback he's going to give them, but all we know is that this issue is stagnated, and it is incumbent upon the descendants to stand up and give the direction to this issue. I thank the viewers out there. I thank the presenters, and I thank the people in the studio here. And okay, Mr. Jabumbi has got something finally to say. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Rekwaja Chikudun. I'm here in my personal capacity as an activist in the genocide movement. I want to thank and appreciate the contributions by the presenters, and a special shout out to go to the organizers of Otjetu for presenting this platform for us to relook or to revisit the genocide issue. At the opening, the chairperson did make a note, or was it Mr. Gawesa, who said at least we are in October, and this is the month where the extermination order was issued, which is true. So that makes October very special. I also want to add to that the month of October in 2011, that is when the first skulls or remains of our people were also returned to Namibia. That add to the significance of this month. The panelists also have alluded to the issue of the 2006 motion. May I remind all of us that that motion was adopted on the 26th of October 2006. You cannot run away from the month of October and its significance in the genocide movement and cause for the cause of the genocide. Now to move on a little bit, one of the aspects that I have listened to many people who are at the forefront of this movement, irrespective of which group you are, I think there is a consensus in terms of our demands from the Germans. I want to know if there is any other person who has something else, but from my own reading and understanding and following this, all of us are demanding that Germany should recognize that the acts they committed during the period 1904-1908 are acts of genocide. We all agree. I want to know if there is anybody out there who doesn't. We all agree that we are demanding an unconditional, unequivocal apology from the German government. And we all agree that considering that it is a genocide by any international law, there should be a reparation. People should be repaired. So if we all agree on that one, it's just the modalities and the approach which differs. Now, in terms of the road which we have taken, I think the panelists have also touched on the issue of how far we have gone in terms of the motion, how far we have gone in terms of the road which was in terms of trying to collaborate with the government. But I want to touch especially in terms of where the presentation on making the motion to move or to start giving the motion some life, and that is to coming up with or starting a process of taking this motion from where it is to an act of parliament in the Namibian government. But I would also like to add, let us also come up with modalities on how we can also ensure that the Bundestag or the government or the German parliament also put it in law in their parliament, so that at least successive governments have an obligation to take this issue forward. It does, and Ms. Maraga has also, Situnga has also clearly stated that in its current state of just being a motion, any other successive government can come and scratch it off every document and start doing and not giving it the momentum it deserves. But once we put it in parliament, in the form of an act, any successive government have an obligation to take it forward. It did also, the panelists have make it also a point that for us, and that also addresses the first point which I have mentioned, that if we all agree that we are converging on these 3 points of recognition of the genocide, apology, unconditional apology, and reparation, there is a need, therefore, that we speak the same words, and that calls for a conference on genocide where all stakeholders can come together and agree on a clear, direct, common approach which we can put on the table with our government and then take it to the Germans as a unit. I only wanted to add that words so that at least moving forward from here, we don't see ourselves in our respective components or in our respective corners, that we are Otjisuta here, so and so is there, so and so is there. Identify the common elements where we all agree. Let us come up with a modality on how best we can take the issue forward. Make sure that at least we have elected leg to stand on in terms of making these things through the parliament and come up with a national conference on genocide where we are all going to come and put our ideas together and prepare one document which we can stand behind as a group from Namibia. Thank you very much.
I think we should now be moving towards closing. I'll just give each of my panelists, a brief remark, starting with Mr. Chombubi and then ending with Mr. Kaweza, and then Mr. Kaweza will do the conclusion. Okay.
Good day. My name is Maleabi Katuo, and I'm a member of the descendants of the victims of the genocide. As we all know, we are all born from these descendants, and we, as a member of the descendants and the society, I have had a lot of talk about the genocide, and we have some platforms where genocide is being discussed, and we are all talking about one thing. What I want to know from Otjisuta is how far did Otjisuta go in terms of reconciling the two previous platforms, which were the one which was headed by the President of Nuto, Ms. Mwinyanga, under the auspices of the OTA, and the one which was headed by some group from the chiefs, which were working in collaboration with the government. How far did Otjisuta go to reconcile this? And another thing is the institutionalizing the motion, as Master Ms. Situnga pointed out. And I think Otjisuta we're supposed to push the institutionalization of this motion so that it can be discussed at the level of government as an act of parliament. That is the only way we can force our government to take responsibility. And once it is now passed as an act of parliament, there will be a ministry tasked for the implementation of that act of parliament. And I think, as Shikuya pointed out, we have to come up with modalities of modus operandi so that we can suggest to the government how we want this act to look like, and this act should address our interest as the descendants of the genocide. And these things we should not be prescribed. We should prescribe to government that this is the content of that act, and these are the programs and projects we want now that act to address so that it can benefit us as descendants of the genocide. I think that is the way to go. And I think Otjisuta, together with the other two forums, can come together and we path the way of talking with the one voice towards Otjisuta that will benefit all of us. I think that's all I can say, but I know Otjituta Oveni was highlighted by Ms. Situnga about the objectives of Otjisuta. And one of the objectives that's standing out to me is that this Otjisuta want to reconcile the two or platform where Otjisuta is discussed, so that we can just have one voice to discuss this Otjisuta. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Katua. I think the unity of purpose and the unity of approach is the vision of Otjisuta Oveni right from the beginning, and we have tried that several times in terms of inviting the traditional chiefs to come together and start talking together so that they can have a unity of purpose in terms of the number of narratives that is running in the topic of the genocide and its reparations. And one distinct achievement that we can point to is the recently meeting that was held at Okanjo, where the traditional chiefs, various traditional chiefs, I think a number of 8 that came together, and out of that process was able to have a memorandum of understanding on which they are operating at the moment. So I think in terms of that we have achieved. All what we are now still needing to go ahead with is the creating the understanding in terms of the whole members of the descendants of the genocide, of the victims, descendants of the victims of the genocide, so that at least they can also come together and have a common understanding and a common purpose. Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, yeah, I would pass over now to Mr. Chobumbi to have a small slot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Kawesa. Indeed, I just wanted to highlight really very few things as my concluding remarks, and that is to say that my dear Alan, also thank you when you are mentioning about the month of October, since it's also my birthday month. So this is what I'm doing to correlate with the month of October. And having said that, I want to highlight the issues of the minorities of our population. In particular, the minorities of the Ovaherero and Nama communities. It is worse because of genocide. It was not biological. And we need to take it from that angle. When people and development aspects are taking place in our country and through our government, we need to note that we becoming part of the minorities is because of genocide. And it is for that reason that we need to fight, and I'm calling upon especially the youth, the younger generation, to start engaging themselves into this aspect of genocide. Because it is them that, or perhaps their children that might benefit from the processes now. Another issue is issues of that was yet by various speakers, especially our late genocide inquiry, to say that the discussions between Namibia and Germany have been taken too long, almost 5 years. I'm saying it's not too long, because the liberation of this country took more than 30 years. And I'm saying that the reparations of the Ovaherero, Ovaherero and Namas is equal to liberation cycle that have taken place. So 5 years 10 years is not good enough. We need to fight. And we need to fight for us to get, for the injustice to be done, or to be afforded the justice that is needed. The institutionalization, my comment have been taken by Mr. Katuo, to say that if us, as the descendants of the genocide, or the victims of the genocide, if we continuously speaking without action in terms of starting drafting the process of what, how we want to see the Act of Parliament look like, that we are talking about, the institutionalization, it needs to start with us so that we are able to sell not only the idea, but also the document, also the draft bill. It needs to start with us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Shibumbi. I think with that note, I can only thank the viewers around the table here in the studio, as well as those who are listening or viewing globally on the Instagram and the Facebook, and everybody that was supposed to be here that is viewing out there. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the day.
Odondera enoveru odombanje enomina odondera enoveru odombanje enomina odondera enoviru odombanje